All right, hi everyone. Just making sure my audio is here working. All right, welcome to Nigerian Professional Group NPG Quarterly Career Hub event. We're excited you all are here. So before we get started, we'll just talk about the organization really quickly and who we are, kind of getting to know NPG. And NPG's mission, as you can see on the screens in front of you, is about empowering professionals. Of course, we're Nigerian Professionals Group, but we don't only just empower Nigerians only. We empower professionals in the community, Black people in diaspora, to become excellent leaders and also promote self-awareness and career development. Everyone can please go on mute, that'll be good. All right, thank you. All right, and as you can see, we do have initiatives that we present throughout the year, including this event, which is our Career Hub, and it has a focus on career development for professionals. We do have our annual gala, which is coming up in December. I know some folks are already excited about that, and additional events that you can find more information on the NPG website. So about today's event, so NPG Career Hub is a quarterly career development series that has a focus on career conversations, kind of exposing our members to career experts and also professionals in their different works of lives, and promoting the skills and how they got there, sharing their stories, and also mentoring some of our members. So if you're interested in being part of not just NPG, but also providing your own skill sets as a speaker or providing ideas, make sure you reach out to the NPG membership team, and those details can be found on our website. All right, so really quickly, some Zoom norms. So we encourage everyone to stay on mute throughout this event. Actually, while the presentation is going on. So my name is Ladi. I know I didn't mention that earlier, and I serve as Director of Special Projects for NPG. Outside of NPG, I work as a Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Program Manager for MathWorks. So if you're looking for a job in tech, make sure you hit me up. MathWorks is hiring. But yes, so we encourage you all to have your video on, unmute your microphones when you have a question during the Q&A segment. But again, like I mentioned earlier, if you can, please stay on mute. We would appreciate if you have your video on. And feel free to put your questions in the chat. We would have a moderator in the chat that is going to collate some of the questions for our speaker tonight. Okay, so we're going to move on to tonight's presentation. And before we bring our speaker on, just going to really give a quick touch really briefly on who she is, but she's going to talk to us a bit more about her resume. Tina, if you can put your camera on, that would be good so I can spotlight you. Gonna find you here. Okay, I think you're there. Okay, good. If one of the hosts can please spotlight Tina, that'll be good. Okay. All right, so Tina Dumas is currently a talent advisor for global retail markets, US finance, Liberty Mutual, which is a global organization, and she's responsible for working collaboratively and aligned with executives to drive talent and organization strategies that help achieve business goals and objectives. So as we go through this event today, Tina is going to talk about her career journey, how she got there, what she's doing now, and how she continues to not only inspire, but also help the next future leaders develop their talent and build their skills that help them out in the workplace. All right, so Tina, I'm gonna bring you up to the stage and we can go ahead and get the conversation started. Really quickly, can folks see the presentation, or am I just speaking to myself?
See the presentation.
We're good? Okay, all right, great, sounds good. All right, so let me know if you're all set, Tina. I think you're still on mute.
All set.
All right, good. So I know today's, the title of today's event is Navigating Your Career. So we want to talk about those skill sets that you can apply in the workplace. And before we get there, let's talk about you for a bit so folks get to know who you are and how you got to where you are.
Yes. So thank you so much for inviting me to join all of you today. This is really exciting, even more exciting because a few months ago, I did a DNA test on Ancestry.com and found out that I'm like 88% of Nigerian heritage. So I've been doing some like serious like historical investigation in my background and just been really amazed with what I'm learning. So this is just really interesting that I ended up here today. And before we jump in also, as Lottie indicated, there's going to be some time for questions at the end, but I also love to hear from people throughout the presentation. So you can feel free to ask questions or type any of your thoughts or comments as I'm going through some of the material in the chat. We do have folks kind of watching that. I'm watching it as well, but really would love for you to just stay engaged and participate. This should be more like a conversation. So with that, as Lottie mentioned in my bio, I am currently working in HR as a talent advisor. And in my role, I do advise senior executives on all things that are related to development and executing on their talent strategies to enable them to meet their organizational goals. And so that could be anything HR related, from talent acquisition, organizational structure changes, compensation, succession planning, and my favorite, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so, as such, my prior experiences in leadership, learning, and development, as well as being a business leader for many years, I've had an opportunity to gain quite a bit of insight into what it takes to be successful in a career within a corporate environment, especially as a woman of color. So today, I really wanted to spend some time sharing some of these learnings with all of you. And my hope is you can walk away with at least one thing that can help you in continuing to pursue and get closer to your own career goals. But what I'd like to do first is just take some time to walk you through my career journey as a Black woman navigating my own career in corporate America. So you could see here on the screen here, it kind of breaks down a few bullet points of where I've been, and there's a ton of stuff in between, but we don't have time for that. So I began my insurance career about 17 years ago, and I was in an entry-level call center job. This was my first big girl job that I got in an actual, corporate environment. And before that, most of my experience had consisted of food service and retail type jobs. So I'm also a first generation professional, and I'm sure there are several of you on the call right now that have that same experience. So that just means that no one else in my family has ever worked in a corporate setting. And you can probably imagine with that, how ill prepared I was for all the politics and bureaucracy that I experienced in my career in corporate America. But anyway, although I didn't have any kind of business savvy or any examples or role models for what a corporate professional should be, what I did have was great work ethic and a can-do attitude. So I'm gonna get it done, right? So so I used that to my advantage early in my career to work myself up level by level until I landed into a leadership role. But I quickly found myself stuck at this level for several years, just constantly being passed over for promotions and being told, oh, just keep doing what you're doing, but it not getting any real feedback as to why it was that I wasn't moving to that next level when I felt that I was just as good, if not better, than the peers around me that were. And after a while, I grew really frustrated with that experience and decided to take my talents somewhere else. And when I did that, I moved to another organization, a bit larger, one of the competitors of my employer, but I landed a manager role. And as a manager at this new company, again, I relied on what I knew best and what had worked for me in the past. And I just focused on keeping my head down, and believed that as long as I worked hard, and if I worked hard enough, the opportunities, the recognition, and the promotions would come to me. But they didn't. That was not the case. Even though I was the highest performing manager in the department several years in a row, I couldn't seem to get promoted. I applied for job after job after job, and each time heard that same message. You are great, Tina. We love all the things that you do, and just keep doing what you do. But again, never really getting any real, tangible feedback to help me improve my odds of getting selected the next time around. And so after a few years of this, I began to feel really discouraged and frustrated, and that stuck feeling, like, really questioning what my career is going to be from this point on. And my leadership team throughout that period would lean on me for everything, so I also started to feel used. They would come to me for developing their managers. They'd come to me for all the tactical, administrative things that they need to keep the department running. But I was never really recognized for any of my contributions, as tremendous of a value that it was that I brought to the department, never acknowledged for that as well. And they also never discussed my career goals with me, or career development, or anything about how I could get to the next level. So eventually, I just decided to take my career into my own hands. And if you have ever been in my presence before, I'm always talking about how I'm an introvert to the core. People don't believe it, but I've worked on this for a long time. And as an introvert, earlier in my career, I hated networking. And it's because, although I like people, when you're an introvert, people really suck the energy out of you, right? And so that was something that I would dread having to do. But I knew it was the only way I was going to really progress in my career. I had to put myself out there. I had to step outside of my comfort zone and strategically build a network of individuals that had the influence and the power to create opportunities and open doors for me. And so in addition to networking, I also started really being intentional about my personal and career development. And so in this process, I decided, at that point, I was working on building skills, strengthening the skills I already had, gaining experiences. And I realized, I think it's time for me to make a career change, like completely move out of what I was doing at the time as a leader. I wanted to do something that more aligned with my true strengths, and I wanted to do work that felt meaningful to me at the same time. Because there was many times where I see people stay within a particular job or career path just because that's what right? Like that's your expertise. But I decided to take a risk and be courageous and step out and try something new. And so what I recognized as my superpower, and I talk about superpowers all the time, I think everyone has a superpower. My superpowers were coaching, developing, influencing, and cultivating really strong, trust-filled relationships. And so as I reached out to people who were working within that new field that I wanted to get into, and at that time it was learning and development, rather than focus on my prior experiences that they could easily find on my resume, I made sure to talk about my transferable skills and how those skills would enable me to be successful in this new role, although I have no experience in this new role. And I also started asking for what I wanted. That was, I think, key to everything. So whether it was, I really want this job, I really would love an opportunity to collaborate on projects within your department. Please introduce me to others within your network that are doing the same work so that I can get additional information and exposure. But I asked. And as I remained consistent with that approach and continued to do it over time, I did end up landing a role in a completely different area of business with absolutely no experience. And so then after a while of building those new skills and filling my toolbox with new experiences, I used that same strategy to make yet another career change into human resources. And again, with absolutely no experience. So I want to pause here and I want to bring you into the conversation and just kind of reflect on what I've just shared with you. Why do you think I'm taking the time to walk you through my career journey before we really get into the content? Or what themes are you hearing? And feel free to put them in the chat.
I will wait for folks to kind of, oh, there are a couple. It took a lot of work. Thanks, Camille. I would say you're emphasizing that there are transferable skills that can be utilized across different job functions. Consistency and not giving up spirit. I heard taking risks and also putting yourself out there.
Yes, all of that. Getting outside of your comfort zone, yes. Determining networking, yes. All of those things. And asking for something. We got to ask for what we want and need. So I want you to kind of think about that as we continue through the content and applying that to your own personal experience. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the common things that tend to get in the way of our career success. And so if you could go to the next, there we go. Yeah, thank you. This list here that you see, it's obviously not an exhaustive list. There's a ton of things that we might be doing that's derailing our career success. But I wanted to take some time to point out some of the things that I see most common, especially now as an HR professional, that tend to hold people back from reaching their career goals. So this first one is really critical, and I don't think people really think about it because I think we have ingrained in our mind that this is my manager and my manager is going to get me where I want to go. But depending on your manager for your development and opportunities is a recipe for disaster. Some of us, we have really amazing managers who do this well, but unfortunately, I would say the majority of managers and leaders, they really just aren't really effective at development. Even their own careers, they struggle with developing themselves and planning out their own career plans. And then if you add on top of that, that managers are also really busy and have a whole team, and so they don't generally have a lot of time to commit to your development either. So my suggestion is you got to make sure that, number one, you are having development discussions with your manager regularly and that you're bringing those discussions to the table and not relying on them to remember to have them with you. But you also need other sources of development, such as mentors or peers or other leaders even. You can also use things as simple as LinkedIn learning courses. I don't know if you've had a chance to check those out, but they're absolutely outstanding. And to be honest with you, I really relied on those heavily when I first moved into the learning and development space to learn some skills around facilitation and training, and they were super helpful. The second thing that people tend to do, especially people of color, people in underrepresented groups, is to think that our hard work alone is going to lead to success. And yes, you should have good work ethic, and you should absolutely be doing well in your current role if you expect anyone to consider you for promotion or a new role. But that's really the bare minimum. And unfortunately, your manager is likely too busy to notice or have any real awareness of all that you actually do while you're doing all that working hard. They tend to miss it. So I would say what really gets you noticed is, number one, keeping yourself top of mind in your manager's mind, keeping what you're doing in front of them, keeping them up to date on any small or big wins. Tell them what you're working on, talk to them about strategy and your big picture thinking, and really engage in trying to figure out how you can help them solve problems that they have, or help them deal with challenges that they are facing as your manager. So thinking that one level up, and I would say actually think 2 levels up. In addition to that, though, you've got to find time to step outside of your day-to-day responsibilities and ask to take on additional things like stretch projects that are going to help you grow and build other skills outside of your expertise, or proactively presenting potential solutions to problems that your department is facing every day, like being proactive about it. Like, hey, I noticed this problem and I think I have a solution. Those things really help you stand out so that you can not only demonstrate your capabilities and how you think, but it's also demonstrating that collaborative and team player spirit, which is super important. As you move up in your role becomes less tactical, more strategic. The next 2 things, I think they kind of work together, but many people know that they're great. I think I'm great. I hope you think you're great. But we really struggle to clearly communicate what makes us great. So we have to understand that people don't know us like we think they know us, not even your manager many times. So you have to get in the habit of communicating what I call your value statement to people. I think of a value statement as like your personal elevator pitch, right? What makes you special? What value do you bring that's unique to the organization, the department, the team? And this is especially important when you're talking to someone with power and influence, and not just power and influence, but power and influence over the career path that you want to take. They can make some decisions or make some things happen in that career path that you want to take. And this takes practice, especially if you're introverted like me. I hate talking about myself, but it's something that I've had to get really, really intentional about so that I'm clear when I'm talking to other people about what I want and need. So I want you to take some time at some point to really reflect on what are your strengths, your skills that really lend yourself to being successful in any kind of role, regardless of what it is. And those are the skills and the strengths that you want to speak to when you are giving your value statement. And in addition to this, when you get that opportunity to connect with people with power and influence, you got to make the most of that moment. And you've got to ask for what you want or need in that moment. You have to behave as if this is going to be your only opportunity to get their attention, because it might be. And so I'm sure all of you have heard the statement or the saying, you got to shoot your shot. That is exactly what I mean. Shoot your shot. The worst thing that can happen is you get a no. And that just leaves you in the same position you already were in. So there's no harm there, but it's a definite no if you don't ask. And so treat every interaction as if it's your only opportunity. And you actually will be amazed at how many people will say yes. Because I believe most people genuinely want to help you, but They don't know if they can help you if you don't say anything. And there's no such thing as building a successful career without the help and support. I'm sorry, if there's someone that may need to go on mute. Thank you. All right. We can't accomplish our career goals by ourselves. I had several people along my journey helping me to get to where I am today. So you have to find those people, whether they are mentors, sponsors, allies. Those are some really key individuals that need to be a part of your network, especially for people in underrepresented groups, like people of color and women. And if you are wondering, like, well, okay, well, what's the role of a mentor? A mentor is really just someone who's going to help you with your self-awareness. And they're going to point out your blind spots or gaps, or they're just going to help you fill capability and skill gaps, like teach you something that you need to know that they are an expert in, that could be potential derailers to your career. A sponsor, on the other hand, is going to be someone that actually has power and influence in that area or career path that you were interested in, that can make things happen and that can speak about you in rooms that you don't have any access to, but where all the decisions are made. And I'll tell you, as a person in HR, we have these conversations all the time, and all the senior leaders gather together and they bring that one or two people that they believe is that top talent, and they talk about them and they make things happen for those people. And you want to be one of those people, and you will not if they don't know you. So finally, you need to have allies in your corner. And this is a critical component when we're just thinking about DEI in general. But you really need people that appreciate and value your differences. And then they work to or seek to remove the barriers and challenges that you experience because of your difference. That's so important. Many people also tend to become really frustrated and discouraged because they don't really understand why they're not having the kind of career success that they believe that they deserve. And for many of those people, it's just simply due to lack of self-awareness. They're not, number one, aware of their strengths to be able to really leverage them, but they're also not aware of their opportunities. And all of us have blind spots. And so one of your opportunity areas or your blind spots could be holding you back. For me, I didn't have anyone that had worked in the corporate environment before, so I did not understand all of the politic type things that were going on and how to communicate in a way in which people could hear me. So I needed someone to point that blind spot out for me and help me develop in that area. And so when I coach people, I tell them first to identify the things that they're great at and the things that they have opportunities in, and then leverage the things you are great at. Look for those jobs and those careers that align best with those strengths and allow you to really operate in your full potential because of that, and work on your gaps along the way or your opportunities along the way. Because at some point in time, you'll need to utilize those capabilities too. So be working on those. The same goes for experience. So career paths are often not vertical lines, but a lot of people think of them in that way. And even though that next role really seems to be the most logical step for you, you may be still missing some key skills or experiences necessary to truly be successful in that next role. So again, I often coach people to consider taking lateral moves in order to add those missing skills or experiences. You can add them to your toolbox so that it makes you that top candidate for that role that you're actually going after when you're ready to go for it. Today's job market is super competitive, and it's always changing. And so the more diverse your skill set and experiences, the more success you're going to have in your career. So the day of the expert of one thing is over. So start to really fill up your experience portfolio with different skills and experiences.
So if I can add one more thing to what you said before I go to the next slide, is around that self-awareness. Because earlier in my career, I just kind of like did what I had to do and go home, just be invisible, no one sees me, I'm good. It didn't take a while to like the VP of the organization where I worked said, I've seen you around here, mind you, I'd worked there 4 years. What do you do here? I'm like, whoa, that was my cue to one, leave the organization, but also put myself out there wherever else I went next, because it told me one thing. So these folks don't care about me. I have to be my own advocate. And if I'm not aware of who knows me, why do they know me, or why they should know me, then I have no business being there. So you could be the most hardworking person, the smartest, but if your name is not on the lips of people that actually matter, it's not worth it. So I think this might be a good way to like jump into the next slide.
Absolutely, absolutely. So go ahead to the next slide there, because I do want to take a moment to hear from you. And just interested, we all have different experiences, but some similar. And I'd love to see in the chat, what are some of the things that may have gotten in your way or is currently getting in your way of your career success? Yeah, that introversion is tough. It really is. You have to force yourself. There's no magic wand for introversion. You just have to force yourself. But I would also say build in time to recover. So when you end up putting yourself out there and expending a lot of effort and energy as an introvert, find time to decompress and recover. Imposter syndrome. Oh, that could be a whole nother discussion.
Yes. Actually, so Jeremiah's waiting to be perfect before I put myself out there. Honestly, I used to be in that hole to like drag myself out of it. But I see a lot of people were in there with me too. So we need to get out of that hole of like trying to be perfect. Just put something out there, and it's probably going to be your best self too. So don't be afraid.
Better, not best, is what I say. Yes. Thank you so much. This is really good, really good feedback. Thank you for responding.
Tina, there is an interesting question from
yes.
there. It says, is it a fact or myth that you can only go far in your career in a people manager role versus an individual contributor?
That is not a fact. That is not true. There are a lot of senior technical professional roles that are out there that are at the executive level. I coach several of them right now. You're going to find that those are going to be more expertise led, right? So as we're talking about diversifying skills, you still need some leadership capabilities as you move up that high in the organization, but it may not be leadership related to people. It might be leadership related to vision or strategy. Anything else?
Oh, there was a comment in here from Stephanie. So you actually hit the nail on the head, I assume. I've recognized that not everyone will see your worth. I have to go to my manager with my worth and not expect them to know. Agreed. And I now hold myself accountable for development. Yes, thank you for that.
Yes, so true. So important. Anything else? All right. Let's move along.
Oh, this is Nigeria.
Go ahead.
All right. So we talked a lot about things that get in the way, but let's talk about some of the things, at least 6 things that I think are really key to your career success. And some of them you've already started to bring up a bit, but if you want to be noticed, and being noticed is so important, people need to see you and hear you. You have to use your voice, especially in this virtual environment. So I see a lot of people on meetings that have their cameras off, that don't ask any questions, that don't engage in the conversation. And that is going to kill your career because you will just get lost. People will forget about you because it's not like they're going to get a chance to walk past you in the hallways anymore and have that chance conversation. Those are your opportunities to be seen and heard. So take advantage of them. It's also going to help give people insight into how you think and how you work. Any opportunity you have to show people your capabilities, even if it's just through asking really smart questions, take that opportunity. You also should be really intentional about building your network, with which we all hear this. But some of us tend to think of networking really negatively, or we just have a negative response to it because it's uncomfortable or it feels unauthentic. I felt all of those things. And so what I had to do for myself is I just had to shift my mindset about what is networking really about. And it's not only about what I can get out of the situation, but I view it as a way for me to also find out how I can be of service to someone else. So let's say you are talking to someone with power and influence. Well, not only am I going to ask for something, I'm going to offer something. Hey, this is my value statement, and I noticed that you have this challenge that you're facing, or maybe I'll ask them about a challenge they're facing in their organization. And I say, I think I might be able to help or offer some insight in that particular area because I'm closer to the ground. I'm closer to the front line. Those people in those positions, they're far removed, and many times they don't really know what's going on in their organization. So you could be a really great asset to them, and you could offer that as a service to them. I like to make my connections with people mutually beneficial connections. I help you, you help me. And then along the line, those people become your mentors, your sponsors, your allies to help you continue to move through your career. And most importantly, I'm thinking about every time I interact with a new person, what can I learn from them? And you'd be amazed how much you learn when you take the time to step out and get to know other people, regardless of what they may or may not be able to do for you. And then leveraging your strengths and develop your opportunities. So we talked about that. Be a continuous, lifelong learner. I cannot stress that enough. That is what we're looking for when we're interviewing. What are you doing to continuously keep yourself fresh, to learn new skills, stay on top of new trends? Those things are super important. And then utilize your strengths or your superpowers and go after those roles that fully allow you to utilize those superpowers and those strengths. Step outside of your comfort zone. If you're comfortable, you're not growing. I'm sure you've heard that before, and it's so true. We need a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of fear. And if you know anything about brain science, we have that chemical in our brain, cortisol, that starts to really fire off when we get a little bit stressed. But it also keeps us engaged. A little bit of stress keeps us engaged. Too much will have us overwhelmed and we're not going to be effective at all. But we all need a little bit of discomfort to be operating as our best self. So don't let that fear hold you back from your greatness. You'd be amazed at what you can actually accomplish. And this one is not on here, but I feel like I have to say it because it's been said to me before, and it's just kind of my model that I go through life with. And someone once said to me, be you until they see you. So don't feel like you have to allow that corporate environment or any workplace to make you lose yourself or who you are. That is not a requirement. That is not what we need. The whole point of diversity is to utilize our collective differences to achieve more. And so nothing changes if we all look and act the same. So be you, and eventually they will recognize the value in your difference. So any questions? I know I've shared a lot. We have plenty of time for questions. I'd love to get in there and start to have some discussion about what we talked about or anything else that's on your mind about your careers.
And if you have any questions, feel free to use the hand raise feature, or you can type your comments in the chat. We'll make sure we get them. So while we wait for folks, I actually do have a question around being yourself, because a lot of times Black African-American people, one, and then throw in the immigrant aspect in there. It's hard to be authentic, right? So you want to go in the workplace and folks are afraid of, oh, my accent, or I'm not used to the way of life here. So I'm going to be absent in those hangouts because maybe you don't drink beer, you don't go to baseball games. It's just, how can you be yourself, but also still be part of the culture in that workplace?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And this is my advice, that I feel like we have to take some ownership of our difference and sharing that with others, because people that we're working with in the workplace most times have never had an experience working with someone of color or someone that's an immigrant, right? And they don't even have any awareness of why you're different. And so just being forthcoming with that and sharing a little bit more about yourself will break down some of those barriers that you have to where you can feel more comfortable being yourself. So, for example, you say you know, maybe for religious reasons you don't drink, and happy hour is just like a big deal in corporate America, especially when we were all going into the office. So I would just find opportunities in everyday conversation to share something about yourself. And maybe that's the thing, like, well, my religion, I don't drink. And so then they will know that, and they will understand then when they are going out for a happy hour that, you may not want to attend that, and that's okay. It's not because you're being antisocial, it's because you don't drink. Or maybe you stretch yourself a little bit, and although you don't drink, can you go and just have the social part of it and drink water, right? My husband doesn't drink, but he still goes to happy hour and he just drinks water or juice.
That's a good one. So there's a question in here. Actually, there's a couple, but I think this might be a quick one. So at what point in your career, possibly years, are you no longer considered early career talent?
So technically, we call mid-career somewhere after 5 to 7 years. And then late in your career or senior experience is like 10 plus years.
Okay, hoping that answered your question. All right, so there's a question here. What steps did you take to get better at networking?
Oh, good question. So I did a few things. One of the things that I did is we had these employee resource groups, ERGs, and I decided to join one, not just as a member, but as like an active leader, taking on a leadership role, which would force me to have to talk to people because I was working on events and projects and things. And so I just got more and more comfortable just talking to people in general because I had to complete those events or those projects. But what I also did was I had a mentor that I worked with that was really good at networking, and I would spend time with them talking through tips and strategies to help me be better. And one of the resources that I'm going to offer to you after this is I came up with a template called the Reach Out, because now that we're virtual, you can't just go by someone's desk to have a conversation or meet in the cafeteria. So you have to actually reach out via email or via chat to someone to set up some time to connect. But I didn't know what to talk about. And so I created this template to plan out what I would talk about. What questions would I ask so that I could be prepared, right? What do I want to share with this person? And what do I want to get out of this conversation before we leave? And as I continue to use that template, they don't know that I have the template. We're virtual. But as I continue to get more comfortable with it, I could start to push that aside and feel better about that networking process. So I'll be sharing that with all of you.
Excellent. So there's a question here. Well, okay, let's see. So it says, please, could you talk more about starting out and breaking into corporate environment without professional work experience? How
Yes.
to get prepared and the resources needed?
That's a great question. So I told you all that I came from restaurant and retail. So you have to, first of all, be realistic about where you're going to be able to start out. For me, when I started out in my career, I didn't even have a bachelor's degree. So I had to start at the very entry level of the organization. If you do have a degree, then you still, that gives you a little bit of an advantage, but you still don't have the experience. So it may still be an entry level role that you'll be looking at anyway. And so don't shy away from that. Get in where you can, and do what you need to do. You know that you're capable, so you're not going to be there long, but just get your foot in the door, quickly build your relationships once you get in there, and then you will see that you will move along quite quickly. Some other things that you can do is some development, like professional and personal development on your own. So does that particular job that you're looking at have any certifications that can help you look a little bit more enticing to the hiring manager? Could you go and get some experience in that particular area on a voluntary basis or an intern basis? A lot of organizations have intern programs. If you have a degree, a bachelor's or master's, several of them have intern programs, so you could look at that. But really, it's just going to be continuing to try, and you may get several no's until you get that final yes. But I hear a lot of folks coming out of college for sure that are like, hey, I've got this degree and I am not going to take less than this amount a year job. And it just isn't going to happen because all these other people have a degree too, and they have experience. So we have to be a little bit more realistic in that.
Sounds good. All right. So there's an additional question here. How do you typically, let's see, how do you typically determine who is beneficial to network with? What do you look for beyond just being in a field you wish to get into?
I look at their brand. That's super important to me. I'm not going to attach myself to anyone that I feel like doesn't represent my personal values. How do they treat people? Number one, so I will really observe them for a while. How do they treat people? I'll ask other people about them. Like, what's your experience with this person? How is it working with this person? Do they have any characteristics that I admire? Maybe they're really confident. Maybe they are really well connected, great at networking. Maybe they, just have some personal interests that are in line with some of my personal interests. And so I feel like we'll have a better connection, because that's the real deal there. It's like you want to build your network with people that you plan to have real meaningful connections with. So that's really a personal question. Yes, they need to be in the field that you are interested in working in, or they need to have influence over people that are in the field that you are interested in working in. But most of all, I think that human aspect is most important.
And I think I probably can add to that as well. So for example, if maybe you're at an event or you're looking at folks on LinkedIn, you can actually ask that person you're interested in and say, hey, you know what, Tina, I'm reaching out to you today, but can you also let me know who else in this field I can reach out to? When folks have asked me that, I'm like, wait, the attention should be on me, but I think about it, you know what, all right, I'm even more interested in being that person that you should talk to. But in addition, here's more people. And I also follow up with those folks. Hey, someone's going to be reaching out to you. Make sure you, I don't know, here's what they're looking for. I'm also going to be chatting with them as well too. So that shows that you're serious about networking.
Not only that, you have to nurture those relationships. This is not a one and done. That's what makes it feel ugly and inauthentic. you have to continue to follow up and you take responsibility for that, so before you're done with your conversation with that person, hey, I'd really love to keep this conversation going, or I'd really love to stay connected as I continue to navigate this career path. Are you okay with that? What is the cadence that would feel okay with you? And keep in contact and keep those people updated on your progress, especially if they give you feedback or tips. Connect back with them to let them know how you've actually acted upon the feedback. People only want to invest in those that are actually going to do the work.
Great. All right, so I think we probably can take to the final question for the night. So this question is, how do you become self-aware about your strengths and opportunities?
There's so many ways. A couple that I will point out is, number one, there are several assessments that you can take that are on strengths. There is Strength Finders, there's DISC. All you got to do is just go online and type in strength assessments or capability assessments, and you'll find a ton of them. That'll be like a questionnaire that'll give you some idea of where to start. You can also ask your manager, your peers, the people around you that know you, that you work with closely. I would say balance asking those people with those that are promoters of you, but also ask some of your not so promoters, like the people that are in competition with you, because they'll be honest and you want honest feedback. And then you collect all of those things and determine, okay, now how can I actually act upon this feedback that I've received? And not all feedback needs to be accepted. Everybody has an opinion, and their opinion isn't always, fact, but at least consider it. What is the truth in it? Or how can I change that perspective or perception of myself, even though it doesn't align with what I think who I actually am? But perspective is everything. So if they believe that's the way I'm showing up, how can I change that?
Sounds good. Thanks so much, Tina. So I think that's actually one. I always took everyone's feedback and say, you know what, it must be me. I'm the problem. Now I know, you know what, thank you for your feedback, but I go back and say, you know what, do I really care about this feedback? Trash. Or I care about this one. I'm actually going to work on that. So I take it, but doesn't necessarily mean I'm actually going to do anything with it. But it's always good to know what folks are thinking. So
Yeah.
Tina, I would love to thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate, on behalf of NPG, we appreciate you not only giving us these gems, but also starting the conversations for a lot of us to think about where are we going in our careers and how do we want to navigate what the next, 20, 100 years look like.
Right.
Right. We appreciate that. So I'm going to bring up Rosalind, who's on the NPG board, to wrap up the event for us.
All right. Thank you, Tina. It has been such an honor to be part of this wonderful event. And on behalf of NPG, the organization, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to you for joining us this evening out of your busy schedule. Thank you so much for inspiring and encouraging us with your words. We do really appreciate your time. And I would also like to thank all of you that are present today for making it out here to be with us this evening and helping us to make this event a great success. We do appreciate your time. Thank you for coming. Please do visit our website if you would like to learn more about NPG. The website is on the screen, is www.nigeriaprogroup.org, or you can join our IG page at Nigeria Pro Group, Twitter, Nigeria Pro Group, and also our LinkedIn page as well. And if you do have any question about about NPG, please reach out to any of the board members, or you can send us an email as well. For upcoming events, you can also check our website for that as well. Thank you so much. You have a great evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Rose.
Thank you, Tina. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Hey, Kenneth, it's kind of late in the UK. You're still awake? Take care, man. Cheers.
Hi, fellas. Thank you for coming.